I was worried about it. Hey, mate, how are you?
How are you? Hi, Rish. Thanks.
How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, well done yesterday.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, you know, you were there. Isn't this nice with a tree up?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I like it.
It is Christmas feels, isn't it?
Tree up?
No, I didn't.
Tree up. Tree up? Yeah, tree
I'm
up.
a bit of a Scrooge. I never really have because I live on my own, so it's a bit sad, really.
Oh, the idea of you
Are you going to spend
dating.
Christmas on your own?
No, with my mum.
Hello, chaps.
Lucky, congratulations.
How are you?
Oh, you stood up.
Yeah, I'm mentioning together.
Well brought up, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
10-time broadcaster of the year now.
So his level of domination is not good for the sport. That's all I'm saying.
Like I say, someone suggested before he won for the 10th time, somebody said, Nick Luck, 8 times broadcaster of the year. How quickly did you correct?
Yeah. See, if I'd known I was going to win, I might not have done that.
You know, you reminded very much of Tiger Woods at that moment. There's a great story when Michael Vaughan was working for the BBC doing interviews at Augusta. And on the Saturday of a tournament, I think it was 2012, on the Saturday of the tournament, he said to Tiger Woods, after he'd finished playing on the Saturday, one day to go to Tiger, you've won this title 3 times before. You've won the green jacket at the end of play on Sunday. What will you have to do to win it? And Tiger put his hand on his shoulder and went, I think you find I've won it 4 times.
Vaughan never did the gig again.
No, I was going to say, did they not get like a proper golf broadcaster back the next year?
Yes, yes, they did.
Congratulations. It was lovely, though, the reaction John Hunt got. I thought that was very emotional.
Yeah, the room stood as one and the applause was long and heartfelt. It was lovely.
That was my takeaway from yesterday, but congratulations. Right, should we get on with it?
Let's do it.
So whilst everybody else was thinking what presents they're going to get for Christmas, I was thinking, how soon can I get my hand on the race car when I was 8 or 9?
I still get presents from my mum, racing autobiographies. Last year I got Mick Fitzgerald's autobiography.
What, better than say?
Yeah, the man I work with every Saturday. But you always want the dream in racing, don't you?
Yeah.
And that was my, you'll never get that opportunity again, I don't think.
This is the best steeplechase track in the country,
Stand up.
bar none. Who is going to be the biggest threat to Skelton?
Have you all gone to sleep at night picturing yourself as
Where are we going here?
What is lovely about being here is it's quite nostalgic for Tom and I, because 20 years ago this week, I actually did my screen test at Sandown, 20 years ago.
How old were you, like 12?
18, with Rishi Persad. And you did your screen test here as well, didn't you?
with Rishi Persad?
Yeah.
And Steve Mellish, I did.
You're both very well.
It wasn't 20 years ago. It was, it was probably about 12, 13 years ago. Was it actually? I didn't know you had your screen test with him. But what you told me afterwards was mine was the only screen test where you reached out to the employers and suggested that they hire the person. So
That's outrageous.
I told you that in confidence.
you did, but that's kind of awkward. But yeah.
But your route
Special
into
memory.
racing was slightly different to, I guess, a nepotistic route into racing, which mine
well,
might be.
Yeah. My uncle wasn't a trainer and my dad wasn't a broadcaster.
How did you get into it?
Well, no, it was my dad who he loved racing. His dream was to have a racehorse, and he retired and managed to buy a racehorse that won first time out of Warwick. It was called Cheval de Guerre, and that was. I mean, I remember watching, Desert Orchid winning King George's and Gold Cups, but never really being into it as I was other sports. But it was something we discussed last week, and about then going and seeing the horse that we had at Kim Bailey's in Lambourne, and it was that sort of sense of being in a yard, the smell of the horses and being up close and personal with them. That was what genuinely did it for me. And then the day that he won at Warwick was just, I'll never forget it. There's a picture of me as a very overweight 12-year-old blubbing away next to the horse, just because it was so emotional, and I'd never really experienced anything that level of emotion before. It was just something that never left me, and that was what genuinely hooked me. That being there when the horse won, and the consistency of going and seeing the horse at home. I loved it. Did you go to Kim's yard? Around that sort of time? I can picture it so vividly. Where everything
when he was in Lambourne.
When he was in Lambourne, yeah. Where everything was, where all the stars, the Alderbrooks and the Master Oaks were, and where our horse was. It's something. It's so emotive for me.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your route into the sport?
My dad loved sport and he loved horses, and it all actually stemmed back to my great-grandfather, who he was an indentured labourer, and he used to watch on a Saturday in Trinidad he wasn't allowed to go into the main area of racing, the racecourse. But my dad used to spend weekends at his grandparents' house in Trinidad, and he used to see my granddad dressing with a white suit, a Panama hat, and a cane. And my dad used to ask his grandmother, he said, where's he going, this chap? My great-grandfather. And my grandmother used to say, he's going to the races. And my dad became fascinated with the racing scene from that age. And my dad was, 8, 9, 10 years old. And he always had an ambition to own and race horses.
In Trinidad?
In Trinidad. And then he came to school, or he came to law school in the UK, he qualified, went back to Trinidad, practiced. But he was only practicing to earn money to blow it on the horses.
I'd love to have met your dad. He sounds like a proper character.
I was just going to ask, was there gambling? But yes, is the answer.
My dad loved gambling.
Was he a good gambler?
He had his moments, but like most gamblers, he came out the wrong end of it. But he dragged me into it. I mean, I've spent loads of time growing up with my dad. Fridays, we used to go to a place called Union Park, was a racecourse in Trinidad. We had a stud farm. So Fridays, we would do that. Saturdays were the days of racing. So they'd race every Saturday in Trinidad, not any other days during the week unless it was a bank holiday. So I'd go racing if I could. When I was 8 years old, I remember my mum went off to a holiday with her sisters and my dad took me racing, but you had to be 12 or older to get into the stands that my dad was in. So he dressed me up in an oversized suit and everything was hanging off me and I went into this place and he put me right in the front of the stand so that nobody else would notice me. But he used to come in between every race and take my bets, go and put it on for me when I was 8 years old. So I was hooked on it. And he also had a stud farm. So I remember he had a prize brood mare called Bluebell Hill, and the best stallion in Trinidad was a horse called Carlisle. And he sent the mare to the best stallion. And I was there when the foal was produced, and it was called Comaneci, named after the gymnast, Nadia Comaneci. And so I saw this horse grow up and race, and he won. And he won on his debut, and he was actually a very successful racehorse in Trinidad. And I was utterly absorbed. The die was cast. There was nothing else I wanted to do.
Is there still a scene over there in Trinidad?
Yeah, they used to have 3 race courses in Trinidad, 1 in Tobago, and now it's just 1 race course. But it's not as successful as it was then. But Christmas times, by the way, in Trinidad were my favourite, and not because of presents or not because of family, but because it was about the racing. That's all we bothered about. The big meeting of the year was Christmas meeting. It was held in Queen's Park, Savannah. They used to call it the Big Yard. And that was the big meeting at the Big Yard, Christmas time. And we used to go and wait for the programs to be printed and distributed on Christmas Eve. So whilst everybody else was thinking what presents they're going to get for Christmas, I was thinking, how soon can I get my hand on the race card when I was 8 or 9?
It's funny that, because we would go to Kempton every Boxing Day from when I was 5 or 6 years old. I think Wayward Lad won his 2nd or maybe 3rd King George the first time I went. And if everybody else was wondering what presents they were going to get, I would be looking at what the runners would be on Boxing Day. And the most exciting thing was, of course, the declarations would come out on the 23rd. You had 3 whole days to get excited about the runners. And it was the days where you could look on CFAX. Wow. So I would just be constantly updating. I
used to do that with the remote.
Yeah.
I'd be
did it with
football scores as well.
Yeah, constantly updating the CFAX or the Oracle page to see the decks for Boxing Day, because I'd be so excited about what was running in the King George.
I still get presents from my mum. Racing autobiographies. Last year I got Mick Fitzgerald's autobiography.
What, better than sex?
Yeah, the man I work with every Saturday. I think I could just ask him about his life. Yeah, like Ruby Walsh the year before, Amy McCoy. But it's so nostalgic, isn't it? Thinking about that mare that you had on the stud farm, the horse that your dad owned. I mean, my grandparents owned some horses. 10 Cherries retired and lived in the field at Grandad's house. So when I was growing up, I used to sort of chat to Grandad.
Who was the good Pass the Peace?
Pass the Peace was
a really good horse,
wasn't he? In the year Michael trained, he took over from, was with Paul Cole as a 2-year-old. Michael started as a 3-year-old with Grandad, Pass the Peace, who was favourite for the 1,000 guineas. But the first horse, actually, funny enough, that I really remember was Barton Bank falling in the unseating in King George at the last with Adrian.
David Nicholson punched Ed Whittaker. Because Edward Whittaker, brilliant photographer, best racing photographer, took a photograph relatively close to David Nicholson in his big sheepskin coat, consoling Adrian Maguire when Adrian Maguire came off Barton Bank at the last. and he went to go and grab the camera out of Edward Whittaker's hand and then thumped him, got hauled in by the stewards.
No way.
Yeah.
I don't remember that part of the story.
Yeah.
But there is always a horse, isn't there? That, and it might be the personal horses connections you have. But who was your horse that really gave you the bug?
It was probably a person rather than a horse. Funnily enough, listening to all of you, none of my grandparents had any interest in horse racing at all until much, much later in life. And that was really through my mum, who had ridden horses all her life, really. And then when she met my dad, he would go and watch her show jumping or eventing or whatever. And he met Josh Gifford. I think they propped up a bar together when their wives were competing. And he just started training. He just retired from riding. He retired very young. Jockeys did in those days, 28, 29. And Ryan Price had told him to take up training at the yard that he'd had. And he said, why don't you come look at a few horses? And my dad was probably giving it quite large. And he probably didn't have the money where his mouth was. So he then went to his dad, who he was in business with, and said, well, why don't we all go down and have a look at some racehorses? And they bought two. And one was supposed to be a flying machine and was going to win the Triumph Hurdle. I think might have won Nottingham Novice Chase about 4 years later, and that was the sum total of it. And the other one that they bought was a big chestnut horse that my mum absolutely loved. And I don't think he was massively expensive. And they had the horse vetted, and he failed the vet on his wind. So this is 1972 or 3. And so they said, well, first horse, we're not going to buy a horse who's failed the vet on his wind. Anyway, Josh found another owner for said horse, and the horse was Approaching, who won the Hennessy in 1978, I think, and was third in the Gold Cup and won about 15 big chases. So we had some friends, I'm not sure if they were friends actually, we had some friends who every time we went round to dinner or lunch there, they had a set of Hennessy Cognac Gold Cup placemats. And this guy, despite my dad, would put the approaching mat on his place every time.
I mean, that's a big near miss. Not
to be fair, the little horse that they bought in place of him did win a bunch of races and ended up running in nice races like the Whitbread and stuff. But he wasn't anywhere as good.
The near miss. Yeah, are you going to bring up my near miss?
Yeah, where you chose loyalty.
Your family
over covert love.
You know about this? No. So when I came back from Australia, I had my superannuation, which is essentially your pension. But because I wasn't staying in Australia, I returned with something like £6,000, as it was. That came back, and I moved to Newmarket to try and get back into the sort of racing scene. And my uncle knew I had a few quid sort of given to me by the Australian government. So he said, oh, we've got 10% of a horse going, lovely horse, by Motivator, who obviously Mike trains to win the Derby. And it's with a load of sort of, Lord Doodah and whatever. Anyway, at the same time, Hugo Palmer, who's a friend of mine, said, I've got 10% of this beautiful filly, love you to be involved in it. The syndicate we're setting up is called the FOMO Syndicate, the fear of missing out. So anyway, I was sort of umming and ahhing, do I go with my mates or do I go with family? And Mike rings me up, he goes, you've got to stick with family, you've got to stay loyal. So I was like, fair enough. She wins her maiden by 10 lengths on soft ground at the back end of the year. We get an offer for £300,000 from Japan for her. Lord Doodah goes, no, this is the best thing ever. They've got fortunes. So I'm going, sell. Anyway, we didn't sell. She then was sold at the end of her 3-year-old year, having done absolutely diddly squat for $25,000. So just about covering the initial cost. She then gets sold to France, wins a listed race on her first start, and sold at the end of her 4-year-old year for something like $650,000. Meanwhile, the horse that Hugo Palmer was trying to...
This is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
The horse that Hugo Palmer was trying to sell me turned out to be Covert Love, who won multiple Oaks, millions in prize money, and was sold for something like £4.5 million. So the 10% that I had cost me £1,000 and would have made me about 350 grand if I went... So the lesson there is always... Go with your family, basically.
But it's weird, isn't it, that I like that story? I should feel bad.
Well, in a way,
why do I like that? I'm like, that's kind of like, why is that?
But you always want the dream in racing, don't you?
Yeah.
And that was my, you'll never get that opportunity again, I don't think.
No, it's so
rare to have that, isn't it? One in a million.
One of the best things about racing is nostalgia, because nostalgia sells the dream. Because you remember horses and what they've done, or you remember people and what they've done, and all the while you're thinking that could be me. One day that could be me. I could do that.
Have you all gone to sleep at night picturing yourself as
Where are we going here?
Spit it out, Tom.
for the watershed? Picturing yourself being the winning owner of a Gold Cup horse or something like that, and imagining that moment. Because I mean, I'm a million miles from it, but that idea is just. There would be nothing,
but it's
like Mick Fitzgerald says, there'd be nothing better than it.
But it's not impossible. That's the point.
No, it's not impossible. You're right. It's not.
Just to get back to sort of the careers, because a lot of, and John Franken made the point really on last week's show about Twiston Davies riding for Twiston Davies, Bowen riding for Bowen, etc., and making the point that for those jockeys, they kind of have an easy footing into the sport and have obviously capitalised on that. But you two didn't come from necessarily a racing background. To a certain extent, you did. I definitely did, although the route wasn't quite as easy as some may think it was. But do you think it is easier now than it has been ever for someone outside of racing to get into the sport? Perhaps in a media sense, perhaps in a owning sense, training sense, whatever. Or do you think we are still quite a closed shop when it comes to that?
I think it's better than it was. I think there are more routes into racing. You know, there are various graduate schemes. There's the Racing Media Academy, there's the BHA graduate scheme. There's lots of different ways to get into racing now, and there are also more avenues to become involved in racing. It's not simply 3 or 4 obvious examples, you know. And because there are different ways in which you can advertise yourself because of social media, and because there are certainly more ways to be seen, to be doing things that are relatable to what we do, I think it's easier to an extent, but I still think there is an element of who do you know, significant element, and who do you know.
For sure.
And the sport needs to ditch that probably, doesn't it? To make it as accessible as it wants to be.
But it's that sort of a community, isn't it? Because people who like racing tend to love racing. So it kind of promotes quite a tight-knit group. So
It's in every industry though, isn't it? I mean, I know people get wound up about it in racing, saying, oh, look at these people who've had all this help getting up the ladder. But that's in every industry. People know people who've had help getting up the ladder.
You'd like to think you'd have to have some aptitude to stay halfway up the ladder, wouldn't you? Maybe that's not always the case, I don't know.
Yeah. I think when you get the opportunity, if you don't take it with both hands, you're not going to stick around forever in any industry. What advice would you give someone wanting to get into the sport from a standing start?
Tom?
I always remember what you said once, which was be nice to the people on the way up, because you'll probably meet them on the way back down. I do remember that.
Yeah, that was the sort of best advice I got given, really.
I think now there are so many different ways you can market your passion through different forms of media that it's, you know, I probably wish I'd, when I started off, done something a little bit different, like a daily podcast. But I do wish.
Stop plugging daily
podcast. No one's mad. No one's mad enough to do that.
Yeah,
but you do his daily podcast.
Yeah, I do. But I think I didn't fully appreciate. There was a time 10 years ago when there was definitely a good time to capitalise on that, and I didn't. You know, I sort of probably wasn't brave enough to, and stayed a little bit more mainstream. You know, I'm on racing TV. I will stick with that and won't try and push myself on other forms of social media. But it's hard to publicise yourself sometimes as well, isn't it? It's hard to want to stick out and say, look at me doing this, filming myself. Some people are much more natural at it and brilliant at it.
But also, when you look at Blogger, who's taken Australia by storm seemingly this winter, over here he's sort of criticised, and you need thick skin, don't you, to put yourself out there.
Well, I was going to say, it's probably attracting a slightly different personality type than maybe 20 years ago, because there's probably not much room for the introvert or someone who's more naturally diffident, even if they're actually really good broadcaster, because the route in is, here I am, this is what I do, here I am taking content in my box room or my bedroom or whatever, and that's your kind of that's your way to get noticed to begin with. And I can't think of many younger people, sort of people in their 20s now, who are doing well, who haven't started by some sort of self-generated content. And actually, when formerly known as Twitter, started, if you did something like that, you were considered to be a bit of a show-off. You know, if you retweeted a compliment about yourself, it was considered absolutely not the thing to do. Now everyone's at it. It's like, look at me. We're all boasting. You know, we've all got shows with our name in.
I welcome what bloggers
There
do.
is
I think
something,
it's excellent.
but there is something so watchable about somebody living that high and low. In particular, blogger running under the stands and seeing Frankie get beat on a Nable, or the French Guineas this year, where the Bashawat's Racing Syndicate, thought they'd won the race and then had
Fev nearly won the Arc.
Oh my God, that clip! If anybody hasn't seen it, it will never be beaten when Orfevre goes clear and the Japanese fans get up and think they've won, and then bang! It's just that is so. I think just because it's so relatable, right?
I do think luck is and not just this one sitting to the right. I do think luck is a hugely important part of anything. Call it serendipity.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a little bit of luck, you could be left behind.
I fell into this job by a ridiculous coincidence.
You were acting, weren't you?
Well, I amongst many other things at the time. Yeah, exactly.
Living a lie.
I was just finishing my masters, and I met this guy completely randomly, who was a friend of a friend. Met him having drinks in London. He had been an accountant at the Financial Times. He then got fired or made redundant. He got a job then. He said to me, I'm working for some digital startup. And I said, what's that? He said, it's called At the Races. They do horse racing TV. He knew nothing about horse racing, had no interest in it whatsoever. It was just a job off the shelf. He'd gone in there as a deputy accountant. So we got chatting. I told him about racing. Genuinely, and I was rehearsing for a sketch show I was doing at the Hen and Chickens Theatre in Islington, and I was walking down the street 2 weeks later in a completely different part of London, and I bumped into him the second time I've ever met him. And he went, I was thinking about you the other day. I went down to the production studios in Hayes, where they made, remember the Hayes, where they made, and you were well up and running by then.
Yeah, they did
3 or 4 months.
A great Olympic breakfast.
Yeah, so it was about 3 or 4 months probably after you'd started, after the whole big flash launch and everything. And he said they're going to do American racing in the evenings. So it's going to be an 18-hour-a-day channel. They've got nobody to start. They basically got nobody to do it. I think it might have had 1 or 2 people. I think Angus and Richard Perham. And would you be interested in, do you think, putting a hat in the ring? So I rang Jim Ramsey. And they got me to do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday the following week. That is a ridiculous way in, isn't it? And I did 24 hours of live TV within a week of even making a phone call.
And it's not just luck as in, fortune. It's luck as in the people that you meet.
That's what I mean.
It's entirely that, meeting Jim Ramsey for both of us, hugely.
And you,
if you didn't meet someone with his willingness to give somebody a chance, so you met someone who's a bit more rigid in their opinions, then perhaps we wouldn't have got the opportunities, but we did. Because sometimes I look at what we do for a living, and this is not false modesty, but sometimes I think how lucky we are to be doing it, because sometimes you think, we're just glorified mic holders. Somebody else could be doing it. And sometimes you think, actually, you don't even need me. I know there's an element of what we do that people go, oh, well done, and they pat you on the back. But so just to give you a very quick example, 1 year working at Wimbledon, there are 4 reporters who work for the BBC at Wimbledon. And Novak Djokovic was playing on centre court. And he was up against an opponent who slipped, fell, got injured, and couldn't finish the match. So at the time, the 4 reporters were all out and about because we didn't think the Djokovic match was going to finish. So no one's there to do the post-match interview. In those days, it was done off court, not on the court itself. So Djokovic walks off court. And he knows the routine because, of course, he's multiple Wimbledon champion. He knows when you win on centre court, you go into that room. So he comes off centre court, and no one goes to him to say, "Please come in to do the interview." So he walks off centre court. He opens the door of the room where he does those interviews, and he looks inside and he said, "Do you not need me for an interview?" So the floor manager in there is a guy called Owen, an old Welsh guy, such a lovely guy. So Owen says to him, "I'm so sorry, Novak. We haven't got anybody here because it was a shock that you've won the match so quickly. We haven't got anyone here to do it." So Djokovic says to him, "Why don't you do it?" To Owen, floor manager, who's never done an interview like this in his life. So Owen picks up the lazy, and he tells the story, and he picks up the lazy, and he's going, "This is Owen." Terrible, but he goes, "Well," he goes, "Novak says he'll do the interview with me." So Djokovic, so the beep go, "Great, we'll come to you in 20 seconds. Djokovic stands on the X. And Djokovic says to him, "How long do you want me to speak for?" Owen says, "Novak says, how long?" And they say, 2 or 3 minutes. So he says, 2 or 3 minutes, Novak. So Novak says, "You just say to me, how did it go, Novak?" and I'll do the rest.
Wow.
That's
So
brilliant.
they come live, they cue him in, they 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue Owen, and you see him go with the microphone. It's just a hand in those days.
Shaking, probably.
So the microphone goes forward and he goes, Novak, how was that? And he holds the microphone. Djokovic does 3 minutes, bang on, beautiful, speaks about the whole match, how unlucky his opponent is to be injured, all of that. And he says, thank you very much. And that's the end of the interview. Djokovic shakes his hand, he walks out. And that's how sometimes you just think, they don't need me. It could be anybody. It could literally be a microphone stuck there and the player comes off, they do it. We are very lucky to be doing it. Because the next time I went down to do an interview with Djokovic, he said, I'm not doing it with you, I'll do it with Owen.
Yeah, actually.
That's brilliant.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that is the point. I'm listening to that half grimacing, thinking this is so true. I mean, if you do the winning interviews on ITV sometimes at the pull-up, right? If I blindfolded you and put headphones over your ears and then said, right, winning jockeys here, go. You could do that interview.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
Now, it might not be as
See where I'm going and probably get kicked by a horse.
It might not be, but if I took it on, it wouldn't be as nuanced as what you normally do. But you could.
And yet,
do it.
there are slightly more challenging ones, which I think having a bit of experience helps. And the case in point was actually on Saturday when Nicky Henderson was at Newbury, not Newcastle, and the immediate aftermath of Constitution Hill, which everyone's been talking about recently over the last few days. And the question is kind of, and I'll pose it to you, what you would do with Constitution Hill if he was yours. But what I got in that moment was a broken Nicky Henderson, really. You could really feel the pain and the emotion that he was experiencing and the uncertainty about this horse's future. And I still, well, you spoke to him recently, didn't you? I still don't think they quite know what he's going to do. I will start. If he was mine, I'd aim him for a Melbourne Cup. I think send him down under, see if he can win a Melbourne Cup and keep the Constitution Hill story alive, because he is very much a horse that has captured, like we were saying, a horse that has captured people's hearts, I think.
Do you think he'd pass the vet for the Melbourne Cup?
Well, possibly not.
And I'm not saying that facetiously, but he is a horse who has had some issues.
Yeah,
in the
well,
past.
possibly not. But then an Irish St. Ledger, maybe, keep him on these shores. See if you can win a very big, valuable staying race on the flat and get everyone excited to see what he can do on the flat. Because I personally think it would be unfair on the horse to keep asking him to do something that he clearly isn't capable of doing at the moment.
I think it is their only option,
Right.
to be honest. Nicky had slightly rode back on that yesterday, and he said, we might still give him a go over. I'm not ruling out running him over hurdles at some point. Retirement's completely out of the question. I would run him on the flat. I agree with you. It's their only option. He says he can't run him over fences. He obviously thinks he's dangerous and a liability if he does that. I don't see how they can run him over hurdles again. I really don't. It's become inevitable that something's going to happen. And if he hurts himself or worse, then all hell's going to break loose. And probably rightly so.
Yeah.
But I don't see there's much to be gained in retiring him. He's a racehorse. No. He's 8. He's got the engine still there. So
you look at his work at Newbury, he clearly does still have the engine. It's just these hurdles are getting in his way and stopping him from showing that. Yeah, flat.
I feel like Nicky, from what he said recently, there's an element of him that feels he wants to, I think, still pop him over a hurdle to prove that the horse can do it. But I think that ship has sailed because, he's got the yips. The horse has got the yips.
Happens in sport, though.
We've experienced it, I'm sure, in all the little things. I have in my short game, you have in cricket bowling. He has got whatever it was. Was it, on
I was a wicket keeper, Tom.
on trials day when he ran through the last, or whether it started at the Cheltenham Festival when he fell, he has got the yips mentally that he's trying to take off where he used to, but then now he is not going. He's not going through it, and I don't think without a major change there's any coming back from that. I was reading about Bernard Langer. He had it with his putter, didn't he? Big time.
You get dartitis when you literally see darts players not being able to release a dart out of their hand. And there was that great documentary I saw about the cricketer, the bowler in the Benson and Hedges Cup final. Who all
just
season
kept bowling wides.
First over of the big final, he got the yips in that moment. His warm-up was fine, and he literally couldn't even bend down at the over break to pick his water bottle up because his brain was not functioning in the way that he knew it.
There was a guy called Steve Sachs who was a Major League Baseball player. This was in the 80s, and he was the Rookie of the Year. And one game, he went to throw the ball back into first base or whatever, and he got it completely wrong, went straight over the head, went miles away, and the crowd cheered a bit, and that got in his head. And for the rest of the season, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He picked the ball up. It got so bad that the crowd started, who were around those bases, started wearing helmets in the crowd as a piss take, basically, to say we're not safe
probably
here.
for safety
Yeah, and for safety reasons. And then they took him out to the field in practice, and they blindfolded him, and they told him to throw it into first base, and he would rip it in every time. Took the blindfold off, he couldn't do
No
it.
way.
It got in his head. But he came back. And Langer with his putting yips, he came back because he changed his putter. I don't know what you do with Constitution Hill.
But that's the thing, it's mental.
Well, like,
constitution,
it
isn't
is, yeah.
He's second guessing himself
Can't
at a
talk
hurdle.
to him.
No, it's
Say to him.
rather harder to get into a horse's mind than it is
Yeah.
to a person's mind.
You're talking about Nicky Henderson's reaction being a broken man. The thing I got from your interview with him was not a broken man entirely, but somebody, like a lot of us, just totally baffled. Because I think he's exhausted all options in training this horse, getting him right. And he's now faced with a challenge that he doesn't have an answer to. That's what I got from your interview. He doesn't know what to do. As in,
You've tried everything.
I want this horse to jump a hurdle and be a champion hurdler. And I think I've done everything. Before the season started, every test he's done, full MOT, every possible, I think in their world.
And there were rumours going around, weren't there, that he fell in training. I asked Nicky, I said, have you seen anything like that in training? He said no, and I think he's kind of squashed those rumours off camera as well. Where that came from, I don't know. But yeah, he said he's tried everything with this horse. So what do you do? The only option, I think, is the flat.
Definitely.
Or retire.
Or retire.
Or retire.
Or retire.
I think just one thing on, I find it, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I know this horse's stature and what he's achieved and the story that is Constitution Hill means that everyone wants to know everything that's happened. Whatever did happen in training. I think there still has to be an element of what happens away from the public on a racecourse has to be sacrosanct. What happens at home in training, there's just such an element of the public and we in the media feel this divine right to know each and everything that happens.
I think it's quite important information.
If you're asked
if
specifically,
he fell in training, people are betting.
but it was the
etc.
fallout. It was the fallout from that. Why didn't we know this had happened? And this was just a rumor. And no,
By all accounts, it didn't happen. From
Correct.
the conversations we've had.
So,
But it's a wider point you're saying, isn't it?
yeah, it's just the he's such public property that I get the desire to know, but everybody wants to know. When Constitution Hill
I do think
last did X, Y,
I do
Z.
think you can apply reasonable common sense to this. If you've got a horse on whom there is so much scrutiny, and that horse has an Achilles heel that is so obvious, and he's the highest profile horse in a generation, and there is something absolutely germane to how that horse is going to run that happens behind the scenes, then as night follows day, that needs to be communicated in some way. But I take your point. You cannot expect the granular detail of every horse's health history, veterinary history, training regimen to be shared, because it's just not practically possible.
Yeah.
And then there were things here saying if it had happened, he shouldn't have run. Well, not true. He should have run, could have run, because things that happen in training. If it had happened, it's a welfare issue. He ran. It's not. It's not at all. Things happen in training. You try again on the race course. But we are, I think, at a line in the sand moment with the horse now.
Yeah. And we'll find out what they do.
And if he's going to do anything, it's stay on the.
Does it signal, given Skelton won another big race on Saturday, Henderson's got some bullets to fire, the Lambus, the Gina. You look at me smugly.
There's a backstory with the Trainers' Championship.
You haven't had a bet already.
No.
You haven't had a bet.
Can we just say,
I was
Tom
gonna say-
Stanley is adamant that Mullins is going to win the
Yeah, this is the backstory. I was going to say, does it signal what happened on Saturday and has happened in the Betfair Chase a few weeks ago, that Skelton is going to win the Trainers' Championship this year?
Yes.
He's gone for a pork pie at this point,
Skelton
and so
is gonna
he
win
can't
the
talk.
Sure.
So how does Willie Mullins win this year? So
Right.
go on. So how much further down the line is Skelton now compared to the corresponding time 12 months ago? He wasn't even in the lead 12 months ago, was he? Nichols was still in.
Yeah, what is it? What's he got? He's got 500,000 lead or something?
1.5 something million.
What, he got 1.5 million lead?
Milk, please.
Sorry.
Has he got 1.5 million
No,
lead?
he's got to 1.5
Okay.
million, sorry.
So the backstory here is Rish and I were sat and we had a rehearsal day here, and because we don't just throw these things together, and we talked about the Trainers' Championship, and I said at the time, Mullins, you were adamant Skelton would win it this year, and I was saying, look, Mullins, you can't write him off because he can walk away from the National.
You won't say you can't write him off. You said Mullins will win the
He'll win.
Trainers' Championship.
He's a better 2 to 1.
Thank you.
I know where that's right.
I love it when you get really dogmatic.
It's
fantastic.
The point being that the National is the race that can win it for Mullins, and it's Mullins' race because he could walk away with $750,000 from the National again because he's got the horses.
But he had just I know he's reinvented the wheel, but he had 5 horses jump the last in a line.
Yeah, 5 of the first 7 home. It's extraordinary.
But how likely and possible is it that he could have 5 horses jump the last in a line again?
It's likely he'll have 3, but
but that's what he needed.
Yeah.
And the Scottish National first and second.
And here.
At
Sandown.
And he won. What did he win? He won just about everything here, didn't he?
He was behind at Tingle. He was behind on
The final
day.
Yeah, the final day.
He was behind Skelton on the final day, having had everything go his way. The luck he's referring to.
You're going to say
it's been on the whole shift in the last couple. He didn't win the Gold Cup with champion. The last 2 weeks has been. I mean, and another with a 16 to 1 poke at the weekend, picking up another couple of $100,000. It doesn't look likely that he's going. But we're early.
We are.
It's December, but it's not as likely as it was. I'm rowing back.
Do we think Nicky Henderson or Paul Nicholls will ever win a Trainers' Championship again?
I'm going to say it's very unlikely that either one will win a Trainers' Championship. Nicholls perhaps more likely than Nicky Henderson. I cannot see Nicky Henderson. Lots of different factors taken into account, but Paul Nicholls perhaps can challenge. But Skelton's such a huge behemoth on the British racing scene now, and it's only getting bigger. You look at the owners, you look at some of the horses. Obviously, he's got recruits from the Nicholls team that are now owners that have moved to Skelton. His entire network has grown to that size now.
The more interesting question, surely.
Sorry.
No.
I know you're broadcaster of the year. I apologise. Tell me what the more interesting question was, Nick.
The follow-up, I should say. You set the ball rolling brilliantly. I'm just carrying on your brilliance.
Back now, Nick.
Oh my word.
Go on.
I deserved it, to be fair. So, yeah, actually, no, I'll stick to it. The more interesting question is not whether Paul Nicholls or Nicky Henderson will ever win the Trainers' Championship again, but if you think that Nicky Henderson's in the autumn of his career, which is reasonable, and that Paul Nicholls is not going to have quite the firepower that he has had because Dan Skelton's hoovered up so many of those big owners, who is going to be the biggest threat to Skelton? Who is the other? Is Ollie Murphy the
Harry
natural?
Derham, Ben Pauling. These are all names. I'd say Ollie Murphy probably is the because he's also getting quite a lot of the owners that Nicholls had.
Yeah, Ollie Murphy is going to end up in the Gordon Elliott role in Ireland.
Yeah,
and Dan Skelton,
Gordon Elliott assistant, of course.
Exactly, and Dan Skelton is the Willie Mullins of the British, and those I think are the way the season. Obviously in Ireland, it'll be Elliott and Mullins for however long, and here it'll be Murphy and Skelton, but Skelton is the Mullins.
Okay, I'll try and ask an interesting question now.
Please.
I'm doing my best. I really am trying hard. If you were to you have got jumpers in training with a few people, you and your brother, so maybe I'll leave you out of this after you heckled me a few moments ago with your insult. But Tom, if you were to have a jumps horse in training, who would you have it with? And I'll ask that to you as well. Who would be the trainer you send your horse to?
Only one.
In Britain.
I'm pricing this up in my mind at the moment. I've got a very short price fav and second fav.
Is your short price fav Kim Bailey and Matt Nicholls?
No, it's not.
So I've got that loyalty from my dad.
Right, nice. Don't do it. I had loyalty with my uncle and it went completely terribly.
What's happened to your loyalty to Alan King?
I thought you were going to say,
Ollie
don't do it. I've had horses with Kim Bailey.
I strongly advocate having horses. I had a great experience.
Yeah, but it's because of that initial, like I've spoken about, that initial moment that came with that yard, and it would just be, I would have to follow in.
Nostalgia is basically taking.
It would be nostalgia. There was one horse, it would go there. And then beyond that, I'd send horses to Ollie because I've known him for quite some time. I like the way the yard is going trajectory-wise, and he trains 12-minute drive from my mother-in-law. It all fits perfectly.
Some people
My
might
wife-
not send a horse to Oli.
We get on. My wife rode out there when she was training for a charity race. So yeah, that's where I'd send him.
What about you?
I'd send mine to Paul Nicholls.
Would you?
Yeah, I think he is so hungry to fight hard for what he's still got and to try and claw some of the ground back that Skelton's got in him now, that he is going to max whatever raw material he has got. You know, he is going to try and get the best out of all of those horses. Not that he hasn't in the past. Nick, you always say how well he used to squeeze the lemon with all the horses. The way he gets horses like a Pic D'Orhy or, you know, that ilk, to just keep getting a little bit more out of them as they get.
Is a good
Tutti Quanti is a
case in point. I know a talented horse, but really did train it to the minute for the Cherry Field.
And I would send a horse to him now because I think he is so keen to not lose any more ground, that he's got to get the best.
Who would you send one to, Lucky? I mean, as I say, you've got horses.
I've had some great experiences with lots of people.
Kevin Blake.
Mm.
You've got to send Joseph O'Brien. haven't you?
Joseph is quite extraordinary.
Is that selling today?
Yes, Lady with the Lamp is going through the
Good
ring
luck.
today.
What's the reserve?
Whether she sells or not, I don't know. But it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
Even if we end
But
up.
he's done brilliantly
kicking it.
with the horses you've had.
He's done incredibly well, and not only that. And I know Kevin works in the yard, and I'm in the media, so you think, oh, maybe you'll get preferential treatment, but you can kind of tell because of the kind of incredibly. What am I trying to say? Lost my train of thought completely.
Joseph O'Brien, I don't know, but there is a chink in his arm, which is quite nice to see, actually.
There definitely is.
10-time broadcaster here, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely right.
We are
More
rocked.
interesting point.
I think I've got it now.
Okay, we can edit this out. Look.
You can just tell with Joseph O'Brien. Just it's so methodical, the way the communication takes place. It's just so well delivered on such a regular basis that you know that every owner in the yard is getting the same treatment, no matter whether that horse has cost us asked in 14,000 euros or whether it's cost 1.4 million. So I just think he's an incredible communicator, brilliant trainer, thinks so much about all the horses, will explain to you why he's doing this, that, and the other, has a target way in the distance.
Okay.
And it's just a real pleasure to have.
And the final question I'll ask on this is, we have seen, and we saw on Saturday again, syndicates have success. If you were getting into a syndicate and you wanted to get an entry into ownership and experience of what we've all spoken about with horses from our younger days, would you want that to be with a younger trainer who is perhaps a little bit more au fait with social media or communication via technology, or do you think it doesn't really matter, if you see what I mean?
Well, I think it matters a lot. You know, if you're involved in a syndicate, and obviously, lucky enough, I've been involved with the Rogues, we've had lots of different trainers over the last couple of years. And it's really interesting how different trainers communicate in different ways. So some trainers are quite traditional and they want to communicate when necessary, and they want to communicate when the horse is running or when there's an important bit of work, when they're telling you they've decided on a target. Other trainers tell you every single thing, and they send you the clips of the horses working, they send you the horses walking, when they're broken in, all those sort of things. And it's those ones that have the better, or you feel there's a better connection, because they're giving you everything. They've got nothing. I'm not saying that there's something to hide, but they've drawn you into the process.
You can build a relationship with that horse then as well, can't you?
You're into, and you talk about it amongst yourselves as well, you know, so-and-so did that, etc. I think the more you communicate, especially in syndicates where you think a lot of people are involved in some of them because of the vastness of a syndicate, you can sometimes feel distance from it. So the more you're communicated with, the more you're attached to it, and you share in that
very important,
experience.
Yeah. Okay, that's jumps trainers. You covered the Japan Cup, didn't you, on Saturday? I feel like I'm sort of interviewing you all. It's a bit, anyway.
Saturday
don't
morning.
mind me quizzing
Early
you.
start, Sunday morning.
Sunday
morning.
What a
Japan
race.
Cup, for the first time in, 20 years, it went to
Yeah.
a non-Japanese trained horse.
Amazing, isn't it?
And trained by Francis Henry Graffard, who has, I don't think it's spoken about just how remarkable a year he's had globally. Breeders' Cup, ARC, Japan Cup,
Champion
Stakes, King George. I mean, it's a kind of Hall of Fame year, isn't it? And rounded off with this amazing victory in Japan, which, I mean,
and
Japan
what
go
a
nuts
season
when anyone.
Calandagan has had.
Phenomenal. But is this not one of the greatest years training by an individual?
Well, it is. It is the greatest season ever from a French trainer, isn't it?
Wow.
He's beaten Andre Fabre's record, group and grade.
I don't think it's been spoken about anywhere near enough.
But I think if you'd have gone back to Epsom and seen Calandagan against Jan Bruegel and what happened there, I think there were a few knocking the horse. There were a few knocking Barcelona. You wouldn't have thought necessarily he'd win his next, was it 4 races? Four group or grade ones? And culminating with the Japan Cup. Because I think the feeling was between them, they wouldn't necessarily get it right each and every time. I think one of the things has been Barcelona's development this season. I mean, the ride he gave the horse in the Arc, Dariz, I thought was sensational. The Japan Cup ride was brilliant. He followed the right horse on each and every time, but I thought he executed both of those rides to perfection. He's always been great. Obviously, it's a long time since he celebrated like he's won the Derby, but he's always been very good. Our time covering racing in Dubai, he's always been one of the strongest. But I think globally now he is, and I think not getting the respect he deserves. I think he has, since he got this job and has been riding these horses and coping with top level pressure, I think he has transitioned now into one of the best around the world, because undoubtedly given the races he's won, and that was proved on Sunday.
Don't you find when a jockey is naturally very gifted, like he is, or like somebody like William Buick is, they're going to be put in some very difficult situations early in their career because they get promoted quite quickly. So they're going to end up riding high-profile horses for high-profile owners early on, and they're going to make a few mistakes. And then they get to like 30, 35, and then they're just absolute mustard because they've got all that track craft and group and grade one experience, international experience to go with what they had in the first place, which was just a gift for riding horses.
Do you think the Japanese dominance, this is a sign that the Japanese dominance might be coming to an end, or is this just a freak horse who's gone out there and won a big race? Because Japan in recent years have just been a sort of flag bearer for how an industry should be run and the quality of horses they're producing.
I couldn't believe it when I look back doing the research for Sunday's programme that 9 of the first 11 Japan Cups from 81 to 92 went to overseas horses, and to Australia, New Zealand, America several times, England, France, Germany. They all had a go. They all had a go and they all won. And now, 20, I'd say no, I think you need a hell of a good horse to get involved.
I'm desperate to go racing in Japan. Has anyone been racing in Japan?
No.
I've never
been to Japan.
No, I'm desperate to go racing.
Unbelievable.
Well, I don't know, why is it that the racing is in the fans' psyche so much? Why is it when they open the gates, they just run?
They're like rock stars, the jockeys and the trainers out there.
But it's been like that for all my time involved in the sport. You know, when Yutaka Taki used to come over to mess up rides on White Muzzle,
Has any jockey, poor old Yutaka,
sorry,
has any
Yutaka,
jockey,
I'm so sorry.
Has any jockey ever had
It's only
to
because
wear?
I love White Muzzle and I can't believe he didn't win the Arc.
Has any jockey ever had to wear something for so long? I mean,
This was the Peter Chapel-Hyam horse, right?
93.
And because I can't picture that. Did he completely bog it?
Well,
Did he?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I feel bad picking up because he's not the only jockey to mess things up, obviously, in big races, but because I backed White Muzzle and I still haven't. But I haven't forgiven a lot of people for a lot of things in my life.
Go on.
The floor is yours. We don't have long enough.
But ever since he's been coming over to ride here, it's always been, he's brought huge audiences when he started to come over and ride here. You know, so this was back in the early 90s. But it's always been at that level. So it's endemic. It's historically it's strong in Japan. But you know, you also look at their finance. You know, the finance in Japan is off the charts, and they've got that game. What's it called?
G1 jockey.
No,
I used to.
Umamasumi.
Go on.
It's that anime game where you buy into the horse or horses, and you create your own stud. But I think it's related to real horses as well. So if you breed let's say, deep impact out of a mare, you wait for the horse to race, actually. So they'll
With real money?
With real horses. No, real horses.
Right.
And so you then invest in it long term. So there's also the game that goes alongside the sport.
What's really happening.
Yes.
It's like fantasy football.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a way of, you look at football fans now, and I haven't got a team this year, but I have done for the last few years, and it's amazing how all of a sudden you're so in. No, I support
fantasy.
fantasy.
Oh, I thought you meant you just given up.
Give it up. Supporting
Given up. You just Tottenham were out.
But it's that game is worth billions.
But the point is,
to the Japanese racing industry.
But with that, you have an interest each and every with football, each and every Saturday into whatever game is being played. You have an interest because you have an investment in that, and that is a way that you would have an investment into what is happening in most races on the track.
People have
Whereas we
tried,
don't have
though, in
that over
racing
here.
to do those kind of fantasy games or sort of social engagement games amongst friends.
But are they
haven't really hit the mark.
Are they picking up on the tech that is appealing to 14 to 19-year-olds at the moment? Who spend so much time gaming, and the gaming is so sophisticated and so technologically
Anime
advanced.
is hugely popular in Japan. They've used that type of game, with that character, to attract that age group, who then go all the way through ages up the ladder to become fans of it and invest in it.
So do you think if there was a equivalent of fantasy football in racing, it would take off over here?
Only if it was pressing the right buttons.
Right.
Yeah.
And only if it was understanding what young people were doing.
Yeah. Well, Joe's a very dynamic team, so perhaps
There you
they
go.
could come up
Well,
with
Japan are happy to play the long game like they have done with the breeding industry. They've gone straight, they bought staying horses. They have no qualms in creating top-class stayers
And they
from the 80s.
And it was a 10-year, 10, 15-year plan with Japan, and they're reaping the benefits of it now.
They've got the interest there. There were as many people in Tokyo Stadium watching at whatever time it was at night, watching the Arc as they were at the Arc. I mean,
Is that right?
You wouldn't get that over here.
It's wild, isn't it? Hopefully plenty of people are watching Sandown this weekend, where we are now. Tingle Creek, one of the big... Why are you smiling?
No, I'm just smiling nostalgically and with pleasure at the idea of a 2-mile chase.
Whatever you say, he's got a more important point to make.
I'm never going to live this down.
Tingle Creek is one of those races that sort of captivates people because it is 2-mile chases round here with the railway fences. Do you remember your first Tingle Creek?
This is the best steeplechase track in the country,
Sandown.
bar none. You can see everything.
Yeah.
From where we're sitting, 2/3 way up the grandstand, you can see absolutely everything.
But you can also stand down there
Yeah.
and see everything. as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just the way the fences come up, the rhythm of it. I don't love the hurdles track here. I think the chase track's absolutely brilliant. And it has produced so many great memories, the Tingle Creek.
Well, you can see down the back.
Nice that.
A well-timed sausage roll, by the way. Tom.
Wasn't it?
Down the back, you can see what hand the jockeys are holding their whipping.
Right. None of us will miss that after John Frank.
Really important.
This year, John Bon, potentially, he's also in the Peterborough Chase on Sunday, actually. Ilete Tom, who was very good here on the final day of the season last year, looks a good race this time round.
Yeah, I like Lerdesid. I thought he was brilliant at Cheltenham on his comeback run. Last year when he came to Sandown for the Henry VIII, he'd had 3 starts. Well, that was his 3rd start. He'd won at Stratford, then he won at Cheltenham, and then he came here. I don't think he jumped as well when he got to Sandown last year.
He's got speed though, hasn't he?
But he's got speed. I think his jumping is better than when he won here. And as I say, they think he's better fresh, and that was his 3rd start. He's only had the 1 run 22 days ago, so I get that. But I thought he bolted up at Cheltenham. And even though I think Ilete Tom is
Favourite.
odds on,
Yeah.
I prefer to take a chance with Lerdesid. Skelton.
First Tingle Creek I came to, Desert Orchid won.
Oh, wow.
But he wasn't favourite because it was a limited handicap in those days. And he was giving a lot of weight to the great enigma that was Vodkatini. And I think it's the first time he actually didn't start. And I remember that obviously the 2-mile start is just, they're right there sort of in front of beyond, but in front of the grandstand. And he planted at the start, Desert Orchid won the race, and as he walked back past the grandstand, the whole crowd booed.
No way.
Yeah, poor old Richard Rowe. He had absolutely no chance. And the next week, they ran him at Cheltenham, and he won. He started. He won the George Stevens Handicap Chase at Cheltenham the following week, and then 2 weeks later they ran him in the King George, and he finished third to Desert Orchid, who'd won the Tingle Creek. They were different beasts in those days.
But when you were here when Desi won the Tingle Creek,
Yeah.
I remember watching all the old footage with the papers flying in the air down by, and when you look back at the archive footage, it's so great to see the kind of joy that horse brought. Was it a real buzz when he won that, even though he wasn't favourite?
The King Georges were the best.
Fine.
The King Georges were the best. I wasn't at Ascot the day that he beat Panto Prince. You might have been. No. But I was at all 4 of his King George wins. And that last King George win in 1990 was just immense. Immense, because people were running out of the grandstands to get to the paddock, the old, beautiful old paddock at Kempton. Absolutely criminal that they got rid of that. And they just sprinted down one end. You could see people running all the way behind the grandstands to just make sure they were there, because they wanted the spot to see him when he came in with Janice Coyle. It was just amazing.
And were you there when Corto won his 5th?
Yes.
And was it noticeably different?
Nowhere close.
Really?
Nowhere
It's
close.
a shame, isn't it? Because I'd love
kinda
racing
sad
to
to
get
hear
back
in a way.
to that.
I mean,
kind
and
of-
the Corto got some amazing reception.
Yeah, that was
But-
massive.
But they wrecked Kempton when they redeveloped the track in 94 or 5 or whatever it was. So you can't get that atmosphere that you used to be able to get on Boxing Day in the 80s.
Well, I hadn't been to Kempton before. Where was the paddock?
Can we do this off?
Yeah,
camera?
you
Is that
want to
right?
Sorry.
We'll draw a map for you, but not now, if that's all right. And it's nice to know that we'll never be able to film the paddock at Kempton now after looking flagged them.
They ruined it, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, yeah.
Corto's 2 wins were in the Tingle Creek were brilliant.
You're a director at Kempton as well, I forgot.
Yeah.
He'll never be at Kempton ever again. You're not there on Boxing Day, are you?
No.
Good. His second win was brilliant because obviously at that point he'd won the Old Roan and the Betfair Chase and was heading straight to the King George. And then Paul Nicholls rang Ruby Walsh on the Monday before the Tingle Creek to say, what should we do? And Ruby said, well, listen, we've just got him settled over 3 miles as a Gold Cup horse. Let's give the Tingle Creek a miss and head straight for the King George. And Ruby said he put the phone down, had to think about it, and then went, you know what? This horse missed so much of his career so far. You know, when he'd won his first Tingle Creek, he then didn't run again till the Queen Mother Championship when he fell in that race. And then, you know, his career not really did out. He rang Paul Nicholls back and said,
Let's do it.
to hell with that, let's just crack on. Won the Tingle Creek against Voiper Aesthetics, by the way, who was an outstanding 2-mile chaser. He had him struggling coming to the pond fence. He was a great, but we cannot talk about the Tingle Creek without talking about Moscow Fly against Welsh Leaf.
Oh, that was a hell of a race. That was a wonderful race.
Those 3.
One of the great races.
Yeah.
I think that was Moscow Fly's best performance.
Agreed.
I was working here with Steve Mellish
Yeah.
that day for Racing TV.
A performance like that, you stand there after the race and you feel it. You feel the chill of how lucky you are to be there for the day, watching that race and seeing those horses. 3 horses, outstanding, 3 top-class chasers, 2 mile test anywhere with top-class horses like that. And all 3 ran their race.
And Paul Nicholls couldn't believe that Azertiop had been beaten.
Wasn't John Hels furious with Ruby?
And Ruby got a bollocking, didn't he?
That's what great horses do, though, isn't it? It brings out emotions in you that you don't realise you have, and hairs on the back of the neck stuff. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Will you please...
I know what's going that smile, you're a bad man, naughty man.
Will you please mark my work as a 10-time broadcaster leader, because I'm going to sign off now, but I'm feeling the pressure. So do, everyone, please... Please watch the John Frankham episode if you haven't already. What we'd love, actually, is questions from the audience. If there's any questions that you want us to answer here on the paddock, we've got Harry Findlay, Ted Welsh coming to join us before Christmas at various stages. So any questions for them, put them in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow at the Paddock UK. And that is it for now. Do you want to just end with a mark out of 10?
You're absolutely brilliant. 11 out of 10 today.
Thank you so much, Nick.
You're the
By the way,
best.
everything's marked out of 10
You're the
now.
best.
See you next time.